I never thought of myself as an unconventional person, but I think really I was very unconventional the whole time. And really, when I look at my parents, so were they.
Yeah.
And I think my kids get that too. Like, they're just like, well, that's what I want to do, so I'm going to just do it, and I don't really care if it's not what everybody does, or if it's not, I'm not taking the route everybody else done.
You're listening to the Behind the Village podcast. My guest today is Anna Proctor, the publisher of North Simcoe Life.
I mean, I was born and brought up in Toronto. So everyone asks, are you from Orillia? Well, I've now been here since 1987, but I can't say that I'm from Orillia still. But people are starting to accept me as possibly an older Orillian now, which is kind. And I had friends in Orillia, actually a friend who was the sports editor at the Orillia Packet and Times back in the day. So I used to come up and visit them all the time. And I always thought, Orillia would be such a lovely town to visit. I was sick of the city. And so when I was 23 years old, my fiance and I moved up here. And we've been here ever since and had 3 kids here. And my husband died in 1999, but the kids and I stayed here. I'm still here. 1 kid is still here, and the girls went back to the city.
Nice.
So that's sort of my personal life. And then career-wise, hilariously, I never had any plans to have a career. Like, I was not a career person. I wasn't interested in a career. I wanted to get married and have kids. That was my big thing. And so I had no plans. There were no plans. I made no plans. When I went to school, I liked to read. So I was just trying to read as much as I could and avoid most of the rest of school. So I went to a school for really smart kids called University of Toronto Schools, UTS in Toronto. And everyone there was going to be and are doctors, lawyers, judges, like anybody that you read that's really done something, they're probably from UTS. And meanwhile, I was like, in grade 12, can I just take like 4 Englishes? Oh, and I have to take phys ed. So, yeah. And then my husband died and I was homeschooling 3 small kids. My youngest was 7. So they were 7, 8.5, and 10. At the time, and there was life insurance, but eventually that was running out, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I sort of knew a little bit about the arts world. So my mother was a pianist and a vocal coach and very involved in the arts and music in Toronto. So I heard that a local band needed an arts manager. And after talking to my sister, who said, for goodness sakes, you manage raising 3 kids and homeschooling them. You're a manager. Just put it on your resume.
Yep, 100%.
I made up a resume with my volunteer work in there, too, with the Hawkstone Hall, and took it in and met Hugh Coleman, who was super sweet and nice to me in his dental office. And he was the president of the Orillia Wind Ensemble at the time. And that was my first job. Was the manager of the Orillia Wind Ensemble. So I was making a little bit of money, which first time, honestly, since I did a bit of daycare when I was like 19.
Wow. Yeah. What a time. I wanted to ask, what was that like? And I know that's sometimes a bit touchy, but just that switch from, being that stay-at-home parent, which is no small feat, and then needing to step into a career kind of thing or into work. What was that like?
I mean, it was like, thank goodness the kids were at least not super, super tiny. So at least it was possible. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of scary because I didn't really know what I was doing, but also it was kind of fun in a weird way because it was like, all right, well, I'll just give it a shot. I mean,
yeah.
And I mean, I knew that I was smart and that I could do it, but, and luckily every job I picked, I sort of handpicked where it was like, it had to be something that was very flexible. Like by the point that I got that job, I was in Toronto part-time because I had a new partner who was in the Toronto Symphony. So we were in Toronto 4 days a week and in Hawkstone 3 days a week and all summer. So every job I picked had to be basically remote before remote was a thing.
Yeah.
And I had to be able to take my laptop to the city and then bring it back up and work around my daughter's taekwondo practices and my other daughter's photography lessons and homeschooling everyone and just trying to figure it out. So, I mean, yeah, I think it was scary and exciting. And then the next thing that happened is I needed a bit more money because the life insurance was really running out. And my friend Steve Caston said, "Hey, do you know that newspaper, North Simcoe Community News?" And I said, "Yeah, like I write for them." He said, "Well, I do website design for them and they're looking to sell it. And I think you should buy it and we should run it together."
There you go.
And I mean, good, thank goodness for Steve and having great ideas, because I was like, "What? You're nuts."
When was that? What year was that?
So that was we actually bought it. I was looking to see when it was. We bought it in 2005.
Wow.
So it started life as the Oromadandi Chamber News in 1996. And it was a print tabloid size paper that came out at that point, I think 6 times a year. And it was mailed to everyone in Oromadandi. And it was kind of run by the Oromadandi Chamber. And then in 2001, Susan Woods bought it and turned it into the North Simcoe Community News. Same tabloid size. She upped it to 8 issues a year eventually. And it was mailed to all of Oromadandi, all of Severn, and they moved it into Ramera a bit as well. And it just told all the local news and community information of the area. So it had the Edie Station news and the Edgar Rugby news and the Coldwater news and all the little hamlets, as well as anything else that Susan saw fit to put in. So I had been writing the Hawkstone news for her.
Very
because
cool.
I lived in Hawkstone. I was involved with the hall and everything there. So I had my finger on the pulse. And I had heard they were selling it. It never crossed my mind to take it over. Never in a million years. But Steve was like, "We can do this. I'm a graphic designer. I'm a website designer. You're a writer. You're an editor. We can do this. It would be awesome. And it's flexible. It's not too much to do, but it would be fun. We could make a bit of money." So I bought it.
Amazing. Did you go into it thinking, just why not try kind of mindset, or was there any nervousness? Were you freaking out?
Again, it was like nervous and excited. Like I would have been way more nervous without Steve. I mean, Steve, I knew was an incredible graphic designer, an amazing website designer, and that was all the stuff I knew nothing about. I mean, when we first started working together, he had to show me how to do a spreadsheet. Like I knew Word. That was it, right? Back to the never preparing for a career. Yeah. So he was awesome. And I just thought, well, with Steve, all right, we'll give it a shot. And we took it over, and our first issue was December 2005, January 2006. That was our first issue. We cut out Ramera immediately because we had no advertising from there, and it costs a lot more money to mail it and print it out there. And we brought it back down to 6 issues a year because we both had other stuff going on, and that just made more sense timing wise for us, and just to make it clear and easier for the writers and the advertisers too. They're not paying for 8 ads a year, So, and we went from there. I mean, he made a way better website, and we started fairly early on. We had pieces of it online as well as the print issue that was mailed everywhere. And we went on like that for quite a while. And then in 2000, and I guess it was 15, we changed. I said, I think we should change the name. And I don't know why. I just thought it was a good idea. So we rebranded as North Simcoe Life, which I really liked. I just felt it was way more fresher. It felt a bit dated the other way. And then, of course, as it turns out, with all this stuff with Facebook not allowing, Canadian news on the site. Well,
Yep.
We're not news. We're a magazine. Nope. We're called North Simcoe Life. We don't use the word news anywhere. So we really lucked out with that because we did that well before that happened. But, when it was going to happen, I looked through and I thought, we're fine, we're safe. So we can still publish our stuff online. And that's really helpful to get our news out to everybody.
Absolutely.
So we did that. And so we kept printing and mailing. But I mean, it was like having it printed and mailed every issue meant that every issue we would print 15,000 copies of this tabloid size 24-page thing, which was super pricey, like $3,500 a pop, 6 times a year. And then we would mail it using Canada Post to all of Ormondanti and Severn, which was another $3,500 a pop. So every issue we had to make $7,000 just to break even in advertising. And that was a lot of money. It's a lot. You know, we were doing really well. We never, you know, made a fortune, but we were making money every issue. The very first issue, though, I can remember, we made $300 each.
Oh, nice.
And then we were really frightened. That was the frightening part. But it got way better after that. It was December. Everyone was out of advertising money, the way it is at the end of the year.
Yeah, winter season's tough, but
yeah, right? So, yeah, but then it got way better and it was really fun. And Steve and Jamie, my son, would have to go and package up the papers. They would come in bundles, but they had to be put in big crates for Canada Post for them, or else they wouldn't mail it. So Steve and Jamie had to go, we used to call it throw the paper day. And Jamie was probably around 20 at the time, and they'd throw these big bundles, 25 bundles in here, 15 and a half bundles in this carton, 14 and a half over here. And then they'd go out to lunch. That was the bribe for Jamie.
That's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, and it was crazy. Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And then the next crazy thing that happened, we were doing well, North Simcoe Life, it was a thing. Everyone loved us. We were on Facebook still, Instagram, everything. And then, of course, the pandemic hit March 2020, and we did that March-April issue. But it was tricky. I think it went out late because even Canada Post, it was like, is Canada Post happening? And does it have to close down? Like everything was very unsure as things closed, right? And so we did our April-May issue. That's what it was. And it went out a little bit late. And then I said to Steve, we have to go online. We just have to completely go online. And by that point, we had been doing a flip it issue online as well as a print issue. So because we were trying to get people used to the idea that they could read us online. So even if they were in Orillia, which is where I was living by then, they could still read the paper on their laptop and it would be all the same news. So we had a little bit of an online readership growing. And then we were just like, I said, well, first of all, we have to go online because I don't know what's happening with our advertisers. Like half of them are closed, they're all in a state of panic and disarray. So we're going to go broke if we spend $7,000 to send this next issue out. And secondly, I was like, kind of our excuse because we've been wanting to do this, not put that $7,000 out every issue. And we can just say it's not our fault. Nobody's going to blame us.
Exactly. Sometimes, the universe will just package things for you.
Yeah. Because I don't think we ever would have had the guts to do it. Well, we would have eventually, but it would have taken us a lot longer. So this way we were just like, sorry, it's a pandemic. We have to go online. Here it is. Boom. And it worked out, and it has worked out super well for us. Like we're actually doing better than ever now. Like, we have way more advertisers, and we've been able to lure some bigger ones in, like Orillia Lake Country, Arts Orillia, Orillia Opera House, the city of Orillia. Finally, people are kind of going, oh yeah, North Simcoe Life. We need to do that. And we've grown our team. I mean, in the early days, my daughter was the photographer for our paper, and she was like 13 at the time. But she took beautiful photos, and every 2 months, same with my son, I'd say to her, get in the car, we're driving around Ormondanti and we're taking pictures. Oh, okay. I'd cart her around and she'd get these beautiful shots of the scenery. And we were always known for having beautiful photos of the area in the paper. That was the thing. So, and then now we've had Deb Halbert for years as our photographer through My Eyes Photography. And she has a huge following. Her photos are just blissful. I mean,
she's incredible.
People can't get enough of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're super lucky with that. And then about 2.5, 3 years ago, maybe, I brought Hillary Handy onto the team, who is our guru of a social media manager. I hate doing social media. I'm not good at it. I don't do it often. And so our social media just sucked. It was awful. And then Hillary moved into Warminster, and she like chirpily emailed me one day and was like, oh, I could write the Warminster news, and would you like some news from this, and would you like something from that? And she started writing a couple of columns for me, and she's very energetic, type A, has 17 jobs and wants 20 more. She's amazing. And so one day when I was cursing my inability to do social media and how bad I was, I thought, I wonder if like Hillary could take it on. I have no idea if she does anything like that. So I emailed her and she goes, oh my gosh, yeah, it's my jam. I said, what? She said, oh, I do social media for the Bob Rumble Center because that was my grandfather.
Nice.
She said, I love doing it. No problem. So she just took it over, and now we're just like, we're the go-to. Like if people go on Facebook and they want to know what's happening, they go to North Simcoe Life.
Yeah, absolutely. I even do that.
She like saved our necks that way.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So we have an amazing team. I mean, still, Steve, he's still refining the online issue now. Like we've made it so that it's basically like each page is its separate web page. I should say he's made it, not me. And so each page has like a story, a picture or two, an ad or two, and then you flip to the next page. And our proudest moment was when my 89-year-old mother emailed and said, I can do it. I can turn the pages.
Oh, that's so nice.
She said, it's easy.
Yay, then it's working.
Yeah, and that's because that's who we didn't want to lose. We have a lot of older readers, and we were worried. But again, the pandemic pushed them. I mean, they all got tablets and cell phones because they wanted to Zoom with everybody. And now we have like regularly people in their 80s who are reading us on their phone. They're reading us on their tablet, and they're telling us about it, and they're telling us they love it. So
that's really great. That's awesome. So I guess what do you do now are you just primarily, I guess, the publisher in charge? Do you still write for North Simcoe Life?
Yep, I am. I'm the publisher and the editor, so I edit everything that comes in. And I also usually write. I always write my own editorial, and sometimes I'll write another piece if there's something I want to write about. And then as well, I now work as a part-time freelance writer. And that came from, like, for years, I did arts management. I started with the wind ensemble, then I did the vocal ensemble, then I did the Aurelia Youth Symphony Orchestra. I did the Huronia Symphony in Barrie and the Kiwanis Music Festival. And then I got kind of out of all the arts management. I was like, you know what? I'd like to be even more at home. So I took 2 days a week being the communications manager at St. Paul's Center. And that was when the church was just really starting the center. The renovations were done, but they were really trying to get the word out that they were an event center. They were somewhere where you could rent space for meetings or events. And I was the person who was in charge of that. So hilariously, I did social media there, which I think I did okay at. But Joe, who took over my job, probably was doing a much better job. And I did a weekly newsletter, and I was involved in a few committees making stuff happen there. So I did that for 5 years, right through the pandemic. And then I thought, I just want to work at home completely. I don't want to go to the church 2 days a week. They're on their way. I don't want to do social media anymore. So I reached out to Aurelia Matters, who I had done a little bit of freelance just journalism work for here and there when Dave needed somebody. And I'd been writing an arts column for them since they started Aurelia Matters, because they didn't have an arts column because John Schwartz had left to start Sun Online Media. So I had been writing that for Dave, and I said, hey, if you have more work, I'd like it. Or is there anything else that Village Media, the mother company, is looking for? And he said, I'll hook you up. So Perfect. He hooked me up with Village Media, and I work for this great guy named Matt there, and I write a ton of their sponsored content. And he's fantastic at just loading me up with work. And so I write stories that businesses have paid for about their business or their special event or a featured job spotlight. And now they're starting a new social media network themselves called Spaces. And I write the host profiles for the Spaces as well.
Cool.
So you get to talk to really interesting people all up in Sault Ste. Marie at this point, because that's where they're starting at. That's where they began, and learn all about them. And then I get to write a fun little profile about these hosts and their community leaders, basically. So
very cool.
Yeah, I feel really lucky. Like at this point in my career that I never meant to have. I basically work part-time, make a decent income. Everything I do, I love doing. And I get to do it all sitting in my living room.
Amazing. What do you kind of attribute that to? Like, is it, obviously you have a quality and there's something about you that kind of got you to where you are, but like, do you feel like it was more luck and just kind of opportunities that you jumped on, or?
It was a bit of luck, but I would say also a bit of like, I've been pretty good at putting myself out there in the community. So I'm a bit of a known quantity. So when I applied for something or when I said, hey, to somebody, can you help me? They usually already knew who I was, or they knew somebody that I knew because I have a lot of friends. and also having a lot of friends, they helped me too. So I think a lot of it was just being out there, and North Simcoe Life also making me be out there so much. Like everybody knew me as Anna from North Simcoe Life, and then Anna who wrote the arts column. So that helped with all that. And Dave just said, like when he emailed Matt, and he just said, this is Anna Proctor. She's fantastic to work with. And I mean, I thought that was so kind, like Dave Dawson is an amazing person and it really matters. He's so good to work for, and he's helped me so much with my writing, but that was a really kind thing for him to say. And Village Media as a whole is lovely to work for. Mm-hmm. I mean, they give you a bonus every year. They send you a gift card to say nice. Thank you. And November and October were really busy. And a couple of the people that I worked for there just sent me a little Starbucks gift card to say, hey, thanks for hanging in there and doing such a good job. Like being appreciated really nice. Like that is really nice. I know.
I've heard some great things about Village Media. So that's really great.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I'm so happy it appeared, because when the packet closed, I mean, I went to the wake at the Bury Bay. I was devastated too. I mean, like I said, I only moved up here because my friend worked for the packet here, so I knew all those guys, and I was so glad they got together and started It Really Matters. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's great that they did that, because I think all of that is important to community, especially our Aurelia, even though it's growing, is still very much operates like a small town. And so having that connection to people and to what's happening and to everything going on is very important. So I think it's really great that, North Simcoe Life and Aurelia Matters and these entities exist to fill that gap, because I think maybe some people take it for granted. And then once, as we saw with the packet, once it went down, then people realize that it's important that there's a place that it needs to be here. So
yeah. I mean, you have to, that's what keeps everybody together, is knowing what's happening and feeling part of that community. I mean, that's why our tagline for North Simcoe Life is "We are a community." And like, we want people to feel like we're their buddies and we're there for them, and that they can tell us anything and that we'll help. And that's the way, I think that's why Steve and I were so drawn to it as well, because we're so much a part of the community of Hawkstone where we met, and we worked hard to make that community a community, and we still do that in our work.
Yeah. How did you get started with writing in general? Did it go kind of all the way back, as you had mentioned, to kind of Hawkstone? Is that where it all kind of started? Or
yeah, I guess it was probably Hawkstone. I forgot too in there somewhere. I had they had a little community newsletter there that came out 4 times a year called the Hawkster. And I wrote for the Hawkster, and then eventually became the managing editor of it. So, and Steve would lay it out. So, we just same old thing. So I did write for it, and then I wrote for North Simcoe Life. I'm Community News when Susan owned it. I always was a writer. Like I took a lot of English in high school. I liked writing. We had to do a whole writing portfolio in grade 12 and I got like 98 or something. My dad's a university professor and teaches creative writing in English. So apple and tree for sure. And we used to, he'd bring his students' essays home and we'd read them and critique them.
That's so cute though.
And everyone in my family loved to read. I mean, yeah, so that was a big thing. And my mother actually is a good writer too. She doesn't do it like as a living or anything, but anytime she writes anything, like a letter to the editor or a letter to a friend or something, it's always so well crafted. So that's definitely in the blood, you know? So, it just was, I mean, I think I was just so focused on, I just want to have kids and I like to read. I never really thought of writing as a career. Also because in those days too, if you said you wanted to be a writer, I mean, they'd be like, well, you're not going to make a living doing that. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I never wanted to go to school for journalism or anything. So sort of structured.
It's different.
I wasn't big on school anyway. I mean, I made it through high school, but I don't really believe in the whole school thing. I mean, I homeschooled all my kids all the way through. So, you know, I wasn't going to go to, I went to university for a year and a half because it was free because my dad worked there.
Right. Yeah.
And then when I told him I was dropping out, he said, why would you do that? You just can stay at school your whole life like me and you never have to work very hard.
What about the school system? I guess, like, why do you prefer homeschooling?
I homeschooled my kids because my oldest son has autism. And way back in those days, he wasn't really diagnosed as such. He was more called like a funny little kid or whatever. But he was a kid that was obsessed with dinosaurs, liked to do what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it, had glasses, and had only used words of 4 syllables or more. And he was going to be going to the local tiny school in Aurelia at the time. And I thought, oh, he's just going to be teased and bullied and he's going to be bored because he's smart. And I thought, I'll just homeschool him. I had some friends that did it in Toronto. I thought, I'll do it for a couple years. We'll see what happens. And then at the end of the first year, he was reading chapter books. I mean, he was really a little brainiac, you know, and then we just kept going. And every year I'd say to the kids, do you want to go to school? And every year they'd say no.
Nope.
So we had a little homeschooling group that we met with. And when we were in Toronto part-time, we were part of a group there that they had really good friends through their high school years, which was really important because that's the time when a lot of their friends up here went to school because there just wasn't as many homeschoolers up here to hang out with. So they had a nice group in Toronto that they saw a lot. And my one daughter did a lot of Taekwondo. And so she had a group from Taekwondo that was important to her. My other daughter was learning photography. And so she had mentors up here and in the city that helped her with that. And just as they grew, I just kept reaching out and finding people that could teach them things. Steve taught at least 2 of them guitar at various times. And, you know, somebody else taught them art from the village and whatever they were interested in, we would move in that direction and try and find someone to mentor them. So it worked really well for them. I think school's probably fine for some kids. And I think for some kids, it's really not fine. And I just felt really lucky that I had the opportunity to do it, partly because my husband, when he was alive, made a good living. And then when he died, he had life insurance. And then after that, I could have flexible jobs and they were older, so they could sort of manage themselves and their schooling more at the time. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I said to them not long ago, like, are you okay that you never went to school? And they all said they felt so lucky to be homeschooled and they felt like so many more doors were open to them and they learned so much more being homeschooled that they still can apply in their careers now and in their lives. So
absolutely. Yeah. But I think exactly what, you know, just kind of the theme that I'm picking up kind of as you're chatting and over the course of your life and all these things that you've done, it's very much that idea of just reaching out and approaching people for things, asking for help, asking for, you know, like you said, someone to help teach one of your kids guitar, or, like, you don't know unless you put yourself out there. And so I think that, for your kids, is it something that they would carry through, it's just to make things happen for themselves, as opposed to just kind of accepting what's being tossed at you through life. So
it's true. Yeah, I think that's really true. And also, like, I never thought of myself as an unconventional person, but I think really I was very unconventional the whole time. And really, when I look at my parents, so were they.
yeah.
And I think my kids get that too. Like, they're just like, well, that's what I want to do, so I'm going to just do it, and I don't really care if it's not what everybody does, or if it's not, I'm not taking the route everybody else done. Like, to give you an example, my middle daughter, she was the one who did Taekwondo for a long time, and she competed nationally. She was national champion twice. She went to Worlds. She went to Pan Ams. Like, she got to travel a lot with that. It was really neat. And
Impressive.
so she was very independent very early. She lived in Toronto by herself by the time she was like 16, 17. And she worked she needed to make some money to help pay the rent there and stuff. So she started her own business at 15 called Emily's Household Rescue Service. Because we were living in the beach at the time, and there's lots of rich people there with no time. So she would walk their dogs, feed their cats, buy their groceries, clean their house sit if they were away. So she started with that. And then she said, I don't like running my own business. And so she went and got a job at Starbucks. And she became shift super at Starbucks. And she was very good at her job. And she once said to me, oh, they want me to be an assistant manager, but I'd never do that because the pay is only a tiny bit more and the work is way more. So she stayed shift super, did that for ages. Then she got herself a job managing a pet store in Toronto called the Bone House in Leslieville, and managed that store totally independently, like in her early 20s. I mean, I was blown away by what she was doing. She wrote like an entire handbook, and they're an employee handbook for them, and a manual and everything. It trained and hired and fired. She did like tons of stuff. She always said Starbucks really taught her a lot that way, and it was really gave her good training. And then she thought, I don't want to be in retail forever. Like, I want a real career. I want to make some money. I want to have benefits. I want to have vacation. I want to have a good job. So she went to my sister, who works for the provincial government and is very good at helping people with career paths. And they talked, and my sister said, I think you would do really well in human resources. Like, it's something where it's different every day. You'd be helping people and working with people, but you can also get really good jobs in human resources. So Emily said, okay, I'll do that. So she looked around, and what do you have to do that? So they had a postgraduate certificate. I think it was at Seneca. So you had to have an undergrad, and then you would do this postgrad certificate. Well, of course, Emily didn't have an undergrad. She literally had gone to school like 0 minutes in her life. But she looked at the small print and said, or equivalent experience. So she thought, well, for goodness sakes, like, I've been basically being my own HR manager for years. So she wrote a letter explaining all of her equivalent experience and was accepted in the program the next day.
Amazing.
Again,
Strong
unconventional,
women,
right? And then so she worked full time and went to school part time for 2 years until she got that certificate, and then went and got a job in HR. So
amazing. But I think those skills, if you call them that, or that confidence, to be your own person and to just, like, I'm absolutely going to do this and I absolutely can. And, to be able to step into that, I think there's a lot of bravery, and they probably get it from you, so.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, I think, like, sometimes I look back at what I did and I was like, geez, that was brave. Like, I didn't feel like I was being super brave at the time. It just seemed like, well, that's what I got to do, so I guess I'll go do it. But I think looking back, I'm like, wow, I think I was doing a lot of stuff. And the girls often say that. They say that they think of me as an example of, like, just going out and doing what needs to be done. And even with my son, like, he was super brainy, like I said, and I thought he'd do well going to university, and Lakehead had just opened here, so it was perfect. So again, we kind of looked for, like, the shortcut. And, one way homeschoolers sometimes go to university is they take grade 12 credits, and then you can apply to a university. But another way is you can apply as a transfer student from another university. And Athabasca University online accepts 16-year-olds without any previous schooling. So he went to Athabasca online for 2 terms. I think he took 3 courses and then applied as a transfer student to Lakehead.
Mark.
Yeah, and that's how we got into university. And that was both like him and I looking for like, well, is there a way around this? Because you're really not going to enjoy taking 6 grade 12 credits.
No, but even in that, there's from what I'm kind of seeing as you're talking, is whether you've realized it or not, there's a creativity that it sounds like you have and your children have as well, that they exercise, and not necessarily, I'm sure, it can be artistic or even through martial arts or whatever they're doing, but the creativity and problem solving in how do I get here from where I'm at now, as opposed to, like we said, instead of accepting just, oh, I need to go to high school and get 6 credits. That's out of the question. How do I still get there? How do I still achieve what I want to achieve without having to do it this one way?
That's right. Kind of finagling our path.
Yeah. But I think that's really cool. And I think that's something that, I'm kind of picking up more recently in life, is there's more than one way to make your way to where you got to go. And just being open to looking for those solutions or those creative.
Exactly. Yeah. And like you said, like getting your community and people in the community to help you along the way too, like my sister helping Emily. And I mean, Jamie was helped so much at university by his wonderful professors there. It's a lovely university. It's still not too big, and the professors really know who you are and really do a lot for you. And he had a great experience there. And now he works at St. Paul's and at Speaking of Wildlife. And again, both places where there's a lot of community and a lot of caring. And that's sort of been, I think, a theme too,
Absolutely. That's really cool. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you want to chat about?
I kind of feel like we've gone over just about everything, haven't we? I feel like I've thrown everything out there.
Yeah. What about, I guess, North Simcoe Life? What's next? You just, plugging along?
Well, it is going to be our 20th anniversary next year. So
wow.
since we actually bought the paper, as we say, even though it's not a paper.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited about that, because I was doing the math with Steve, and I was like, oh my gosh, Steve, like in December, it's our 20th anniversary. So I think there's going to be some really fun stuff in that 20th year, like starting December 2025. We'll do something neat in each issue. No idea what. I mean, between Steve and I, we're pretty creative about figuring stuff out. Like maybe we'll do like a fundraiser for a community organization or something as North Simcoe Life. That would be really fun to do. Maybe we'll have a big party and invite everybody to it.
Yeah,
the last
I was going to say,
big party we did a business after 5 in the park at Oro, and my friend Jennifer made all this incredible Jamaican food.
Oh, so good.
And it was so good. So it would have to be a heck of a party. But maybe
for
we'll
a 20th anniversary?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. And we usually do fun contests most issues anyway, but maybe we'll do a really, really neat one. So Steve and I do have to brainstorm, and we've been talking about brainstorming even more about, fine tuning kind of the way that it's laid out. Although I think he's pretty happy with it now, but he'd like to add like videos and stuff for advertising, and videos generally in the stories sometimes. So he's a very good videographer as well. So that could be something we add in. And we let Mariposa Arts Theatre do it last time just as a little trial, and I think it went okay. So
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, but I'm certainly not in any hurry to sell it or retire or anything like that. I feel like Steve and I, we both say that North Simcoe Life is the thing we do that we love the most. It's like our most favorite part of our jobs.
Yeah.
So I feel like as we retire from everything else, we'll still hang on to North Simcoe Life for quite some time. So good. I'm happy and excited about that. And he's fantastic business partner. And with the great team we have, I just feel like We're so lucky.
Yeah, it's true. And you can feel it and you can see it in the whole thing, in all the content, and, right from, like you said, with Deb with photos, and Hillary and you and Steve, like all of you. It's just, you can feel it. So that's good.
There's a lot of joy that comes out of that paper, I think.
Thank you for listening to the entire episode. All the links and info you heard in this conversation will be featured in the show notes on our website, so make sure to check villagermagazine.ca/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing to our channels like YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you're listening from so you never miss an episode. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.